Right, good afternoon everybody. I'm Ian Mackey, the Chairman of the Audit and Governance Committee, and I'd like to very much warmly welcome you to this meeting this afternoon. This meeting is being held in person at County Hall here in Norwich and is being streamed live on the County Council's YouTube channel. A fire alarm test is not expected during the meeting. If the fire alarm does sound, then we must evacuate County Hall in an event of emergency. Please make your way to the nearest exit and meet at the muster point, which is under the main car park. Under the Council's protocol on the use of media equipment at meetings held in public, this meeting may be filmed, recorded or photographed. If anyone wishes to do so, they must inform me and ensure that it is done in a way that is clearly visible, that everyone present, if they do not wish to be recorded and filmed. The wishes of the individual not to be recorded and filmed must be appropriately respected. So, sorry that paragraph is a bit of a jumble, but what it means is if you don't want to be filmed and photographed, can you let me know now? If not, we'll happily proceed with the meeting. This is a new paragraph which has gone in. Okay, so if the lights are all on our best side, we'll carry on with the rest of the meeting. Moving on to the agenda, to receive the apologies from and any substitute members attending today. So I'm going to ask Megan to read through those. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I have apologies today from Councillor Saul Penfold, who is being substituted by Councillor Brian Watkins, Councillor Karen Vincent and Councillor Mark Kiddle-Morris.
Lovely, thank you very much, and thank you, Brian, for substituting. That's appreciated. Let me move on to the minutes of the meeting held on Thursday, the 15th of January. Of course, we had another meeting, but that was an emergency one. Well, that is the one regarding external auditors. So the minutes have been circulated. Anybody, any points they wish to factually comment on those particular minutes? No? If not, I'm happy committee for me to sign as a true record. Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. I'll just sign these for you. Lovely. Thank you. Another super set of minutes as always. Thank you. Right, now item 3, which is members to declare any interest on today's agenda. Any declarations of interest? No? Okay. Oh, sorry, Robert, didn't see you.
Chairman, I believe the Norfolk pension scheme is being discussed, and I declare that I'm a member of the pension scheme.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Any more on the pension scheme? No? Right, so updates from the Chairman, item 4. Now, I'm just going to hand over to our Director of Finance, Harvey Bullen, who's got an update on the final settlement from the government and also on our SEND funding. Some of you may have read about today. So Harvey's just going to provide us with an update to the committee on what that's all meaning for the County Council. Thanks, Harvey.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the government announced the final local government settlement for 26-27 yesterday. The impact of it is that in terms of the main county council budget, there was an additional amount of funding for revenue support grant due to a correction in the way that the government allocates business rates pools between county councils and district councils. And that was something that we asked them to adjust, and they've done that. We've also had updated data from our district council colleagues, and the net effect of that is there is an additional 2.1 million for the 26-7 revenue budget. We will be reporting that to full council via a supplementary paper, but the more significant item is the government has announced a mechanism for dealing with the high needs block DSG deficit. The approach that they are taking is to deal with that in phases, and the settlement yesterday gave clarity around the deficit for the period up until 31st of March 26. The proposal from the government, or I say proposal, the approach that the government is taking is that it is funding 90% of that deficit, and the remaining 10% will need to be funded by the County Council. As councillors may be aware, the County Council has been part of something called the Safety Valve Agreement, which was a programme run by the government. The government has also confirmed that that programme is coming to an end, and that contributions that were made as part of that programme by the DFE in terms of a safety valve payment and local contributions from the County Council will be taken into account in the final calculation of how the deficit at March 26 will be apportioned between DFE and the County Council. Clearly that is good news, because we have been asking for a mechanism to how to deal with that deficit. That unfortunately doesn't completely solve the issue, because the likelihood is there will also be a deficit in 26/7 and also 27/8. And what the government has said is it recognised that there is likely to be a deficit and it will provide support, but at this point in time has not given details of what that level of support will be, other than to say that that support will not be unlimited. So there was clearly an expectation for councils with SEN to manage the costs as well as we can to minimise any deficit position. Until we've got further information, we won't have a complete picture. What the government has said, going back to the deficit up until March 2026, is that it will require local authorities to submit a plan, which we will do, and it will also look at various other data that we have to submit to government to work out an allocation, and on the basis that we meet the approval of DFE in terms of the plan that we submit, it is likely that they will pay the 90% grant in the autumn 2026. So that's the latest information. Clearly, it's still early days at this moment, and no doubt there'll be more guidance come out which will clarify exactly what process we have to go through. But that is the current position. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Harvey. I hope members found that useful, and especially around the S&D funding. That's something we've been asking for time, and you know, that should be welcomed. So there we are, members. That's a very helpful update. Now, I know you've got another meeting, so we'll let you go, Harvey, but thanks very much for coming this afternoon. No more on that item, so I'm going to move on to item 5, which is our risk management report. It's our sort of focus on risk at this time. We've got Thomas Osborne, our risk lead here, and also delighted committee members to welcome Andy Ambridge, who is our business systems architect. At the last meeting, we talked about our infrastructure resilience, risk, loss of ICT, and Andy's very kindly come along to give us a presentation this afternoon. But before we go to that, I'm going to move to the item, and Thomas, do you want to present your report, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. So before I run through the corporate risk changes for the last quarter, I did just want to briefly address 3 questions from the previous committee, which I've gone away to seek clarification on. So the first point was in regards to whether a strategy was in place for the impact of school closures and the associated costs of transporting children to alternative schools. So the response that I've received is that in most cases there is little to no major transport implications of a school closure, as so few children are being moved to another school. We would only be responsible for transport for some of those pupils. And where a school closure would come about would be occurring where there's an insufficient pupil cohort in the school and living in the school's catchment area to sustain good educational provisions. So the implications on transport are minimal. For the second question raised, which was around the County Council and how it secured funding for affordable housing alongside securing funding for other infrastructure requirements, I've spoken with colleagues and they've advised that affordable housing funding is secured actually by the district councils. rather than by Norfolk County Council itself, and that infrastructure and service requirements will be sought by district councils for things such as affordable housing, play space, open space, etc. And in addition, other service providers such as the police and various health bodies may also seek developer contributions towards improvements to their services directly. So in short, it does lie with others rather than with Norfolk County Council itself in that respect. And the third question was a query on the progress of the rollout of the electric vehicles. And from an infrastructure perspective, we are looking currently at business cases for electric vehicles, for inspection vehicles, and there are some strong commitments in terms of our supply chain as part of our re-procurement of the highways contracts to use electric vehicles where we can. So those are the responses that I've received to the 3 questions posed at the last committee. I'll move on, if I may, to just running through the key changes to the corporate risks. So we have on pages 15 and 16, Appendix A of my risk management report that sets that out. I'll very briefly work through them. So in terms of the new risk, we've got RM52, which is our transition of NFRS, the Norfolk Fire and Rescue Service, to the Mayoral Combined County Authority. We've got a couple of risk score changes as well. We've got RM10, which is loss of key ICT systems, and with the increased threat overall to UK organisations, including local authorities, of course, of a successful cyber attack, the current risk score has been increased slightly from 8 up to 12. And RM29, which is our critical skills risk, the critical skills required for the organisation to operate effectively. The risk score has been decreased from 12 down to 9, and that's owing to some really positive critical skills indicators which have been addressed just below on page 15. We do have a risk title change, RM38, insufficient capacity to meet demand in adult social care services, and a risk description change to RM51. That's our local government reorganisation risk, where the risk description has been further developed following the inauguration of the Local Government Reform and Reorganisation Programme Board, and they've input into that as well. So I'll pause there to see if there's any comments or questions. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Thomas, and thanks for updating us on the 3 questions that came at the last meeting and the changes which are going on. Of course, when we get to our next meeting in April, we may have a clearer picture on what LGR is looking like from a ministerial perspective. I'm just going to open up now to members if they've got questions on this report. Brian, and then Brenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Thomas, for your presentation and for setting the scene for us. I think the report shows quite clearly that there is a certain amount of jeopardy within the Council's corporate risk environment, and which we all obviously all need to be very mindful of. The risk register continues to grow in scale and complexity, as has been flagged up in the previous external audit process that we considered at the last committee meeting. And obviously it's a concern that there appear to be a growing number of high impact, high likelihood, big risks that obviously need careful attention. And obviously with LGR just round the corner, we obviously need to do whatever we can to mitigate those risks. A couple of questions, if I may, Chair. The first is, the external auditor has repeatedly, I think, warned that risk register is very complex and difficult to oversee. So my question would be, what actions are being taken to improve clarity and prioritisation and auditability of risks since that criticism was raised? And the second question relates to the 4 red rated risks in the risk register, including 2 in adult social care and 1 in children's services. can the committee be assured that the directorate recovery plans are sufficient to prevent further service failure or overspend in those areas? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. It's, the second question, well, both of them Thomas will be able to answer, but in terms of the first one, we were discussing at the last meeting, as you rightly say, what the external auditors had suggested. Now, my take on that particular item about whether we've got too many or too few on our risk registers is not a criticism that we are too diluted. It's a question about what they think was appropriate. Now, my take on this is I'd rather have 28 than fit the audit lens on a very much smaller set of risks. It's about what's appropriate for the council, what's appropriate for us to know. There's nothing worse than saying we've got a mandatory target of only having 10 on the corporate risk register, and the 11th risk is why didn't you know? That the worst thing, as Churchill said, is too late. That's my mantra. So I'm very comfortable, actually, as chairman of this committee, that we've got the right number of risks on here for us to have appropriate oversight of the corporate risks. Some are much lower level in terms of their status and impact than others, and we sort of focus on them on a regular basis. So I hope that gives some assurance. And like at the last meeting, we picked up on the increase in risks regarding IT infrastructure, so that therefore we've got Andy here. So, I know there was it was flagged by the external auditors, but I'm not sure if it's quite given the weight of criticism which it warrants. Thomas, I'm going to ask you to add on. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the question. Yes. So in terms of the first question around the number of corporate risks, don't really have too much more to add to the Chairman's statement there in terms of there not being a quota that we work to in terms of a specific number being acceptable. If they are meeting the corporate risk criteria that we have, then they are a corporate risk. In terms of the actions that we're taking to review the corporate risk register, I sit down monthly with our executive leadership team, and I work through with them. We take 3 or 4 corporate risks per session to review them against the corporate risk criteria to make sure that they are still hitting that corporate risk criteria. And if they are not, then we have the option to demote them down to a departmental level or close them if appropriate to do so. But we are actively working through the corporate risks that sit on the corporate risk register to determine whether they are still corporate risks and stress testing them effectively against the corporate risk criteria that we have to ensure that we are treating the correct risks at that corporate level. So we are actively working through that on a month-by-month basis with the executive leadership team. So hopefully that provides some assurance that we are working through that recommendation that was put by the external auditors. And we will continue to review that in the months ahead. And in terms of the red-rated risks, again, we have oversight and input, active input from the executive leadership team, again, in those monthly meetings. So we do have a close eye on those red-rated risks, and we are looking as well at the mitigations to ensure that they are still appropriate to be able to hopefully reduce the risk wherever we are in a position to do so. Most of our corporate risks are treatable. To say that we are actively able to reduce them, some are what we would deem as tolerable, so we don't have an active input into circumstances that are beyond Norfolk County Council's control. But where there are elements that we are able to control, then we are doing so. So just to make that point as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Brian.
Thank you, Chair. I was really just going to, if I may, come back on your response to my question. I mean, do you feel, Chair, that perhaps the external audit have sort of overplayed the situation a bit? They've exaggerated the concern about the state of our corporate risk register, and that really the reality is that, as the officers just described, that the situation is well in hand and under control.
My view is we have got the corporate risk registers that we need to see at this meeting in order to reflect the authority. So if we've got 10 cabinet members, there's only two or more each. So my view is this is the right number for the right time at the right place. And this, the external auditors didn't say, you should have 10 or best practices, you should have 14. I'd rather have more information than less in this role as we navigate through quite considerable change, whether it's climate change or whether it's local government reorganisation, or it's something which we didn't necessarily ask for, like the mayoral combined authority in terms of the transition of the fire and rescue service. So I think in short, medium and long term, we've got the right balance here, Brian, and that would be my view. If we were sitting here with 101 corporate risks, I'd think, hang on a minute, that isn't quite working for us. But looking through these, from my experience of working with the other chairs of audit across the Eastern region, this tends to be on parity with what other local authorities are doing. So yeah, I hope that's reassuring for you. And as Thomas has said, he's spending time with the chief officers looking at these, whether they're right and timely. So yeah, I'm comfortable where we are. Thank you. Brenda, I think you were next up.
Thank you, Chair. Thomas, firstly, thanks for another thorough report. It can't give you much joy to do it, but thank you. It's always worth reading. Thank you. I have two questions. One is rather a long question, and the other one is a very short question. So can I do them both?
Yes, please.
Okay, question one is on wholly owned companies. These are the risks on pages 61 and 62, if you want to have a little look. It's clear existing mitigations have failed to ensure our companies have provided appropriate returns. Our controlled entities are taking drastic measures simply to stay afloat. Norse is withdrawing from the care market, and Hethel will only remain financially secure if its shareholder is willing and able to support it. Ensuring adherence to LATCO guidance, it is critical to ensuring the Council strikes an appropriate balance between allowing a company the freedom to manage its activities and ensuring that it is accountable for its actions. With this information in mind, could officers please answer why the risk of failure to follow LATCO guidance has been omitted in the RM048 risk description, despite its presence in RM048's predecessor, which was RM013. Could I suggest that it be restored? And do you want to answer that one, or shall I fire ahead with the second one, which is quicker?
To answer that. So you're right in saying that we previously had risk RM13, and the nature of the risk had changed slightly. So we'd closed off risk RM13 and we'd opened up risk RM48, which is similar but not the same in nature. So the risk owner as well to put that to them.
Thanks ever so much, thank you. My second question. Last audit, I asked officers to confirm how Norse's withdrawal from the care market and its continued losses was being reflected in the Council's risk framework. Given that the in-principle sale to Stowe Healthcare has now been agreed by the Cabinet, can I now request an update as to how it will be reflected in Council's financial reporting?
Thomas?
So I think in terms of that would be coming from, well, from a financial reporting perspective, I would imagine that would come elsewhere to the risk management report. But I can certainly feed that back again with that respect.
Thanks. Would it be possible, Chair, to ask that you circulate it to the committee? That would be great. Is that possible?
Yes, we can follow this up after the meeting, because I think that probably needs a more technical response in terms of where's it's going to be shown and how it's going to be recorded. So I don't know if Adrian wants to add anything, but I think we can get a proper answer after the meeting. Adrian, anything?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I mean, there'll be two sides to it. There'll be the Norse Group's accounts in terms of what happens there, and also then there'll be the county council's balance sheet and so forth. So we can take that away and come back to give an answer on how the care market changes are being accounted for. Thank you.
Smashing, thank you all.
Any more questions on the risk register? Yeah, Brian.
Thank you, Chair. I've got quite a lot of questions, but I'll keep them to 2 questions. The first concerns the Norwich Western Link. So given the current situation that the Council now finds itself in with the Norwich Western Link, at what point will the Cabinet be asked to consider ceasing further expenditure until planning and environmental issues are resolved? That's the first question. And on a more general level, what steps are being taken to ensure that statutory bodies, particularly Natural England, are engaged earlier in scheme development to prevent potential further expensive late-stage objections? Thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Brian. I think obviously that this meeting is not a scrutiny one, so it's looking at how the process is taking place rather than why the process is taking place. That's more of a political question. Thomas can take those ones away because we are looking at hopefully a better solution. The Council continues to wish to complete the Norwich Western Link. It's part of our policy to do so. But we have got to find ourselves in the current situation of having to navigate the various bodies and influences on this particular road. I'll ask Thomas to add on to that, but in terms of the particulars, we will have to follow that up, Brian.
Thank you, Chairman. So just to address the second point that the Council made on Natural England engagement, we are working very closely with Natural England going forward to ensure that we are on the same page with that. So I think lessons have been learnt, and we are actively engaging with Natural England to ensure that there are no discrepancies between the two views, both from Norfolk County Council's point of view, but also Natural England's viewpoint, where we don't have active sight of anything emerging from Natural England with respect to the project. So there is active ongoing engagement with Natural England. That's a short answer there. And as mentioned, in terms of the first question raised, that's not one that I'm able to answer, I'm afraid.
It's more complicated. I suppose the evidence would have been if the government didn't think it was worth pursuing at the start, we wouldn't have received support from the Department for Transport to pursue this last part of the NDR. Brian.
Thank you. Just to clarify, yes, I mean, if that could, I do think it's an important question that needs to be asked or answered. So if it could be followed up and an answer supplied, I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. We've captured that, haven't we? Lovely. Thank you. Any more on the risk register? Who'd have thought our corporate risk register? There we are. No? Okay. That's been very helpful. I'm going to hand over now, who's patiently been sitting. Andy has come to talk about RM 010. And we'll hear a little bit more about the IT infrastructure, which is quite a critical one for the delivery of all of our frontline services. So important now as an organisation. If IT goes, what happens? So I'm going to hand over to Andy to take us through his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members and officers, for having me today. I'm Andy Ambridge, I'm the Business Systems Architect, and I'm responsible for cyber security for the authority. So I'm just going to take you through a handful of slides today about our cyber position within the authority. I'm just going to breeze through some of the cyber threat landscape where we currently are, and then talk about some of the protection and resilience activities we've done this year, and then finally round off with what else we have got planned. So starting with the cyber risk, it continues to grow. The National Cyber Security Centre, which is the public facing of the GCHQ, has advised us that the threat level continues to be high to the UK, and the UK experiences at least 4 nationally significant cyber attacks every week, coming from either state-sponsored actors in other countries or just people trying to be unhelpful. I was going to dwell on a couple of those. You're probably aware and seen in the press of the rather significant cyber attacks on Marks and Spencer's, which say they cost them about 300 million in lost revenue and fixing costs. That was pretty much their entire profitability for a year. There was Harrods and Co-op also suffered similar attacks. The most significant one, though, by far was Jaguar Land Rover, which is worth just mentioning for a moment. The cyber attack on Jaguar Land Rover is estimated to cost nearly 2 billion in lost revenue and recovery costs, and was the most economically damaging cyber event in UK history. It actually affected the country's GDP, which was a first. So that was obviously quite significant. The takeaway is that these attacks are real, they're happening, and it's having a big knock-on effect on other organisations. There are at least 5,000 other UK organisations directly affected in terms of supply chain and onward costs from Jaguar Land Rover's event. I just want to mention some recent attacks on other local authorities. So in November, 3 London boroughs suffered a very significant cyber attack. The Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, Westminster Council and Hammersmith and Fulham all suffered a cyber attack at the same time. It turns out that was a result of them using a shared data centre, and an attack against one of them that compromised their defences turned out to be an attack against all of them. That attack disabled the contact centre, websites, phones, and they've since confirmed that sensitive data was stolen. So again, the takeaway from this is that UK local authorities are being actively targeted right now. So it's important for us to keep our defences up. The government has been aware of this heightened state, and we've had several statements from various parts of government. So Dan Jarvis, MB-MP, is the Minister of State and Minister for Security, has mentioned that the high-profile cases underscored the scale and intensity of the threat. So it's nice to have that acknowledged. That was published on the front of a National Cyber Security Centre report. So this is being acknowledged at the highest level. Cyber security is business survival, say the National Cyber Security Centre, and as a result actually wrote to the FTSE 350 companies reminding them about this cyber risk is significant and needs to be taken seriously. So the advice coming from the National Cyber Security Centre varies all the time, but 3 key items right now are to ask us to make cyber risk a board level priority using the Cyber Governance Code of Practice, and I've put a link to that there. It's very useful to see. But at the moment, I know that Jeff, the Director of Digital and Transformation, does brief the senior leadership team on a regular basis about cyber risks. And as you know from the previous agenda item, the cyber risk is included on the risk register. The National Cyber Security Centre offers us a variety of free services, including the early warning service, where they keep an eye on our digital assets and will warn us if there's any compromise of them or any indication on the dark web of compromise. So we have signed up to that and continue to work closely with the National Cyber Security Centre. I've also picked one other item out. It's quite specific but worth mentioning, is a requirement to include cyber essentials in our supply chain. So cyber essentials is a National Cyber Security Centre sponsored standard for securing digital systems. And achieving this assures a certain level of cyber hygiene and security. Supply chain risk is when an attacker attacks somebody who gives us services and by extension perhaps compromises our own services. The Cyber Security Centre have advised us that that's one of the biggest single risks to the organisations at the moment, so this one's worth us paying attention to. And one of those things we can do is whenever we engage with a third-party service is to require them to demonstrate a high level of cyber security. And a good way of doing that is to require a Cyber Essentials accreditation. So I'm going to be working with the procurement team to try and make sure that we put that requirement in every new procurement the authority does. So just a couple of items about what we've done recently to try and assure you. That's kind of the scary part, if you like. But we are working hard to make sure that the authority stays secure. We use various services to do that. A couple of key ones I've picked out here. We use a service called AvePoint. You'll be aware we are heavily reliant on Microsoft services. Microsoft 365 provides us with email, Outlook, Teams, quite a lot of other things too. So to mitigate the risk of ransomware, where data can be encrypted and then we might be charged for unencrypting it, we actually back up the entirety of our Office 365 estate into a separate service. An attack, we can recover that data ourselves en masse and rapidly. So that's a precaution we've taken. It's not the cheapest service in the world, but it gives us an awful lot of peace of mind that in the event of a cyber attack, we have a recovery path. Zero trust security is a concept where we say trust nothing, but verify everything. And what that means is that, for example, the laptops you're using right now can operate in any environment securely. So you can take them to another building, an internet cafe, and carry on using them securely. So we have now implemented that across all laptops in the authority. And finally, just to pick on one other, Cloudflare is a service that sits with our websites and makes sure that if somebody tries to take our websites down, that we've got some protection against it. I think that's one of the things that has been a lesson learned in these. Their websites went offline fairly quickly, and we have tried to make sure that all our primary websites, including the main www one, are all protected by this Cloudflare DDoS protection. So that just means if somebody tries to overload it and take it down for fun, that we have a good set of protections in front of that. So just a couple of other items about things we've done. So briefly, in the last year, we've worked with the LGA, the Local Government Association, to conduct cyber exercises to test and improve our cyber response. And the National Cybersecurity Centre has worked with us framework. So that's a new national standard across all of public sector for measuring cyber maturity and promoting best practice. We were one of 20 UK authorities that piloted that and helped shape it. So we've been in at ground zero on that one and have been very much at the core of that one. So that's been helpful for us to get ahead of the game on that. You'll start seeing sold out across NHS standards and DCIT are adopting it too. We've also done the Cyber Security Awareness Month, which was in October, and I don't know if any of you saw the publicity on that, but some reasonably high-profile things in the manager's briefing, all staff briefings, and on the laptop lock screens. There was lots of hints and tips there, but if I had to just ask you to have one takeaway from that cyber exercise, it was think about your personal email. We secure your work emails very well, I think, but your personal emails, I would highly recommend if you don't have multi-factor authentication on it, that's probably something worth looking at. And if anybody wants help with that, more than happy for you to reach out to me and help with that. It's the single biggest thing you can do personally to secure your accounts. I will just mention our phishing campaign as well. Probably one of our bigger risks is in staff and their behaviours, and we conduct regular phishing simulations whereby we send test emails to people, be a hacker, and see if we can educate people into not clicking on things. We do that every year. Last year when we did this, we had quite a few clicks actually, and I make no apologies for choosing the subject of pay scales as bait. Because you can guarantee that a hacker will use every trick in the book to try and get people to click on emails and put in their credentials with the NHS and use it. And also the Public Services Network accreditation, which is an important one, allows us to continue accessing and using DWP data and provides a basic level of independent cyber assurance about where the Council Cyber Maturity sits. So we achieved that in December 2025 and is accredited until December 2026. I wanted to pick up on just one specific item of things we are currently doing, and that's the commissioning of the new Security Operations Centre and Security Information and Event Management System. So without trying to get too technical, the CM system is a cyber system that collates cyber information from all our systems and looks for patterns and analysis, allows us to identify cyber risks as they happen in real time. We've always had one, but we've just upgrading to the new best breed system provided by Microsoft, and that was part funded by Microsoft as well. It's got the potential to use AI to analyse and respond to threats. So that's a new service we've stood up, and it's capable of looking across all our systems and our systems across the internet in the cloud to protect us. That's going to work hand in hand with our new Security Operations Centre. So that's in a partnership with a company called Phoenix to extend our ability to monitor our systems 24/7. So at the moment, we can only monitor during office hours, although we do provide a skeleton crew. We will use this new security information and event management system to isolate any compromises we find. So Phoenix will be working out of hours specifically to help us protect the service, and if they find anything going bad, they can shut it down for us. I'll come on to that point in just a moment, but these are two really important things that I think we are in the process of implementing right now, and it's worth keeping an eye on. So just thinking forward then, what else can we do? There was something from the Jaguar Land Rover cyber attack which was really interesting. The Jaguar Land Rover attack was bad, but it could have been worse. So looking at the National Cybersecurity Centre's report on that, they reported that one of the things that Jaguar Land Rover did was to quickly take systems offline to isolate them. And although it was bad, it could have been a whole lot worse, going a lot further. The advice from NCSC was to have plans to quickly isolate systems without necessarily having to ask permission at all stages. Now, that's not carte blanche to just shut down things that are important to the authority without any consultation, but it does mean where there are specific areas of low to medium risk that we can isolate to stop an attack going any further, that we can, both ourselves and with our partners, do that. From Jeff, that he believes as Director of Digital and Transformation in his Silver Command role, that he has authority to make those decisions, to take those things down. So that's something probably just worth of consideration, that we could do those things in the event of a serious cyber attack to protect the authority from greater risk. This is an important one I'd like to just highlight. Exercising business disaster recovery and business continuity plans. The authority's not actually carried out a major disaster recovery exercise since 2023, and we do ask by various audit committees and bodies to whether we've done that, and the answer is not since 2023 at the moment. So we're recommending that a full disaster recovery test should be scheduled for 2026. And by full test, we'd normally mean taking down this will be the next evolution of that, so it's the next gen of antivirus. So we'll be introducing that to the authority in the next year. And last couple of slides, thanks for bearing with me. Recommended next steps. So we're going to complete the installation of Microsoft's flagship cloud-based Sentinel system. So that's the CM system I described earlier. That's going to include centralized monitoring. Of all our systems. And we're going to implement the new Copilot, actually have that license as part of our Microsoft commitment that got given to us, protecting us. That Security Operations Centre and the automation and response is when they come back to us and say, you've got a problem and here's what we're going to do to help you fix it, particularly out of hours. So that's one of our most significant vulnerabilities at the moment, is that out of hours cover, and the partnership with Phoenix for a Security Operations Centre does greatly advance our capability. We'll need to continue to address the supply chain risk by ensuring all suppliers to the authority are properly cyber assured. I mentioned that before, it's worth reinforcing. And finally, we work closely with the National Cybersecurity Centre to ask the question, what's the next big thing? What's coming over the horizon? So, over the horizon, I think, for the next couple of things is in this year, there will be a UK Cybersecurity and Resilience Bill introduced by government. So that's about strengthening national infrastructure, and they'll be extending the definition of national infrastructure to include transport, healthcare, and probably fire and rescue as well. So those things will then fall under the category of national infrastructure and will be required to do things like reviewing incident response plans, conducting cyber assessment risks of those services, and preparing for independent audits of those services. So that's likely to become law this year. So published a government cyber action plan which will be implemented over the next 3 years to define how government will secure public services. So that's something we'll need to focus on as we get details of that. That's new, it's not a law, it's a plan, but there's some very good stuff in there already, so we will be looking to adopt those principles as they come online. That's the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm sorry there was a lot of things in a very short space of time there, so I'm more than happy to take questions on any of those items now. Thank you, Chair.
Lovely. Thank you, Andy, very much indeed. I'll bring Brenda in a second. I'm sure other people will have some questions. Firstly, thanks for the presentation. It really does bring the risks alive when you can see it, and I must say, really reassuring presentation on what you and the team are doing. I think my general observations were regarding the recovery pathway. I think that's the very first thing, and the resources required to do that are completely necessary. If there are issues about funding that, then please do let me know. I'm slightly off piece, but I think it's important because given the tens of thousands of people that we serve every single day via our services, mostly electronic in terms of being organised, and the data we hold, that's pretty critical. Then there is the work regarding the LGA and all the other stakeholders, and it's great to see that Norfolk is in the mix, up being at the vanguard of the this particular issue. There was the other point regarding working with suppliers in our supply chain, and you know, this is obviously a big cost on the county council as well as our suppliers. I'm just thinking small and medium-sized enterprises who, you know, maybe smaller organisations may need some support around, you know, part of the procurement process, you know, being, you know, where do they get their security from? How do they put in the system in a realistic way? And I think the last point, before I hog all the limelight, is the Jeff believing he has the authority. I'd quite like to move a recommendation, if other members are so minded, that we as an audit committee says we recommend that he does have the authority to pull the plug out if it's needed in an emergency, and the Phoenix stuff as well. Again, the sooner we get that, the better. And a proper stress test this year, I think, is again something we would certainly support. Nothing. I do this in my own public employment. You know, you can't beat being an end user going through a journey of, if that went down, where would I go? And that really does show you how it would go. So just some observations. I would like to move a recommendation that Jeff does have the authority, but I'm going to open it up to other members now, weekly. And I've got Brenda first thing. Thanks, Brenda.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you so much. That was so interesting. We listened to so many reports, but that one really grasped my attention, and I'd be particularly interested in finding out how I can protect my own emails at some point. Look, I have a question, and I don't know if it's one you could really answer, but that is, our relationship with the United States of America is, you know what I'm saying. Are you concerned that we are all attached to American companies like Microsoft? I know in Germany they've moved away from a dependence on American systems. Just quickly, your personal views on that.
Thank you. That's a good question, actually. We are heavily committed to Microsoft products. You're absolutely right. And probably Oracle is the other big commitment with that as well. We do take some precautions on that. So, for example, with our Microsoft service, we actually only use UK data centers for that. So it doesn't detach us completely from the US commitment, but it does mean that we are under things like UK GDPR laws for our data storage and for our services. So while data can transit anywhere in the world, in fact, our services are all based in the UK, south of London, and in the rest of the UK. So that doesn't completely isolate us from that. But we also do develop the capability to work offline as well. So if there's, for example, a major Microsoft outage, that most of your laptop capability will work without any internet connectivity as well. So working offline is still an option. But yeah, you're right. Actually, there is a big reliance on the US for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Brenda. Any other questions on... Oh, Brian, thank you.
Well, just general observations, really following on from what you've said, Chair. You've said most of the things I was going to say, so I'm not going to repeat them. And Brenda's question as well. And thank Andy for his presentation, which, again, as Brenda has said, I found really useful and instructive, and quite clearly from Norfolk County Council perspective, we need to develop our plans very quickly. Speed is of the essence, and delay could be very dangerous for us indeed. And certainly from what you've said and the slides that we've had up there, you're covering all bases as they are at the moment, and we're, in terms of preparedness, I think we're in a good place. We obviously realise that there can never be any room for complacency, and there clearly isn't. I suppose I could just ask, if I have a question to ask, really, I suppose, would be in terms of the supply chain, which was mentioned there, and obviously the need to make sure that they are ready for any challenges as well. Perhaps you could just elaborate on the measures and initiatives that we would be are planning to take to make sure that they're up to speed with all of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a great question. The supply chain risk is significant, and the Cybersecurity Centre has advised us we need to be looking at that with every new contract we have. So I'm working with Emma Foreman and the procurement team to come up with a digital and transformation procurement process that we'll publish on MyNet, for example, to make sure that all new procurements go through the standard process of IT procurement that includes a supply chain assessment. So we already provide everybody with a template of things that includes a cyber risk assessment, but at the moment that's not really mandatory, it's best advice. So we're looking to moving to make that mandatory so that all new contracts that come through the procurement team adopt that supply chain risk assessment before we go live with any supplier, in fact, preferably before we actually select them. So we are going to be building that into the procurement process. I think there's also something about us helping particularly local businesses to achieve that standard. The Cyber Essential scheme is free to use. It's a self-assessment scheme at a basic level, so companies can do that for free, and it does contain some very good things, some basic must-dos to make sure that companies are doing the basic level of cyber hygiene. But with supply chain risk being such a big thing these days, I think we'd also like to assess that. So as part of that procurement process, I'm building in a kind of a questionnaire to cover the major bases, which is actually based on the cyber assessment framework I mentioned, so that we can pick up the cyber maturity of those companies and make sure that they do meet that minimum standard. I think the challenge we'll have is that's only going to happen for new and change contracts, so anything that's an existing contract wouldn't necessarily have that applied, so we'll have to retrospectively go back across all digital contracts and make sure that level of hygiene is in there. So that's something we'll be looking to take on fairly shortly.
Can also ask, how we are trying to sort of keep up to date with sort of best practice, because obviously these things, it moves very fast. The criminals are always seemingly one step ahead. You sort of deal with a range of problems and then they think of something else. So in terms of us as a local authority, keeping on top of that and keeping ahead, how do we go about making sure that we're aware of all the best practice methodology that there is available at national level for tackling this?
Yeah, I kind of have a mantra, which is the minute you think you're smarter than a 14-year-old, you're on a loser, because they are smarter. It's what they do. But those patterns and practices are highly analysed by the National Cybersecurity Centre and colleagues in DCIT and the Digital Cabinet Office as well. So we take their best practice advice. We're regularly in contact with them. Jeff, in fact, chairs the Cyber Technical Advisory Group nationally, which those bodies sit on as well. So we keep close contact with them and take their best practice advice at all times. There's kind of two levels of that. There's the new stuff coming in, the things we hadn't thought of, and so those force us to adapt our cybersecurity posture on a regular basis. But there's also some must-dos, the basic things I mentioned, MFA, and it's about reinforcing those in all places. The number of times I go through a procurement and go to a business and say, you will be putting multi-factor authentication in, won't you? And you get this quizzical look back going, well, is it necessary? And you go, yes, it's basic stuff. We must be doing that. So that's the second thing, is to say all those things that we already know we should be doing are the things that keep us safe 99% of the time. So it's a matter of reinforcing those and making sure we keep the pressure on that. But yeah, certainly with those agencies, and we do take some independent advice on that as well through retained companies, we do try and keep up on best practice advice at all times and not just rely on the BBC News website.
Thank you. So if there's no other points there to Andy, I'd just like to thank him again on behalf of the committee for the reassurance he's given, not only on the processes and systems, but also as an individual who obviously has a deep passion for this and also is on top of his brief. And for me personally as a chair, it's lovely to hear an officer who is able to know the ins and outs, to use a term. And I think keep up the good work, Andy, and thank you for the service you're giving to the council and to the people of Norfolk. So really appreciated your time this afternoon. Thank you very much indeed. If no more on the risk, I'll move to the recommendations. I would like to indulge myself with a recommendation that the Director of IT is given, just to make sure it's clear, either we need to write to the Chief Executive and say that he has given the authority. There's nothing worse in the middle of a crisis wondering whether you've got the right or not to do something. And I think Jeff has led yourself, Andy, and the rest of the team in a great way. So I'll make a recommendation F in a second. So if we turn to recommendations, we've got the key messages as paragraph 2.1 and 2.2 of this report. Key changes to the corporate risk register, Appendix A, the corporate risk heat map on Appendix B, the corporate risks as February, Appendix C, the information in this report is sufficient, and I would say, and the subsequent questions. Oh, sorry, Robert.
Yeah, sorry, Chairman, I've just suddenly occurs to me, what if the Director of IT is on holiday or something? Should there be a substitute or a number of other named officers? I mean, I don't know what the officer would suggest here.
I would propose that Kurt Frary, as the head of IT, would take that decision.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Lovely. Great, it's very good on that. Not everyone's awake 24/7, hovering over their laptops and phones. I don't know, I do about 2 hours sleep. And then we've got the report is sufficient, and we'll follow up on the questions which members have raised at this meeting. And then item F is that we recommend that the Director of IT and his or her deputy are giving authority to take appropriate action as required. If that reads about right, Megan? I think it does. Are members happy to agree those recommendations? There we are. Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you to Andy. Right. So I think I've read out the right recommendations. So we move on to item 6, which is the Norfolk Audit Services Quarterly Report for periods ended 31st of December 2025. I'm going to hand over to Adrian for this paper. Thank you. Page 68.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, this is our usual regular report for the quarter. I'm pleased to confirm that the opinion on the internal controls, risk management and governance is satisfactory, acceptable. So in the report we set out the position with the reporting as at the 31st of December. So on page 70, there is at 2.2 a table giving the progress through the different stages of the audit work for the 26 audits that we had in the outline plan. So what I can add to that, just as an update, is to mention that in terms of final reports management letters, there are two more reports that have gone out. There was one for Poringland Primary School, and there was also a contract management report on the highways, the new highways contract and preparations for that, as well as the public health grant compliance audit. So that number is has gone up. So draft reports has gone down to 3 as those have moved forward. The field work was listed as 4. It's now up to 6 because we've got some work just starting on some further audits. We're looking at My Oracle at the AEP and AR and payroll sides of that, and also there's a report on commissioning that we are working through on. So taken together, if you like, in terms of the final reports, draft reports and field work, that's 12 out, so it's just less than half. Now, obviously, we are well advanced into the year, I'm appreciating that, but the work is moving forward. One of the key points is that we have 3 senior auditors. You'll have seen from the recruitment and resources management that we had, we appointed a new senior auditor to work with us temporarily, and that's been extended through to the end of the calendar year. So I'm happy that we've got resources to move through. So there's 3 senior auditors, 2 audit managers, and then there's a senior audit manager, which is Jackie. She can't be here today, unfortunately, gives her apologies. We also have an auditor who's now going to be going out doing the school audits, because it's that term where we're putting in place the new arrangements for the school audits, that we have sort of thematic audits, but that we do it on a risk assessed basis and go out to audit the schools in the term that we're moving into now. So that work is taking place. So I just wanted to make clear to the committee that yes, there is further work that's coming online at pace, and my team and I are fully committed to taking forward the delivery of the audit plan, and I appreciate that was something that the external auditors mentioned as well when they were doing their report, so we're absolutely sighted on that and understand that. So we'll move forward with those audits, managing those and monitoring them really carefully to make sure that they move forward and that we're efficient and effective with that. And I'm looking forward to reporting on the opinion and the assurance that we do in our July report, when we report on the annual report, that we will have the work there that will give good assurance and for the opinion and so forth. So that work is ongoing. So that's in terms of the audit work, and hopefully that's helped to understand what that current position is. On page 73, it mentions about the anti-fraud work. My colleague Andy Reeve can't be here this afternoon, so I'm happy to be able to cover off. He's mentioned that we've got 3 cases that have come in that period up to the end of December, and those are being worked on. Also, in that period of time, in that quarter, there had been 7 referrals through on the whistleblowing, making disclosures. So that work is being investigated and looked into. There's some details there in the report, which is explaining on page 74 the sorts of topics that are covered there. I'm really pleased that we do get a steady feed of referrals coming through. That's showing me that the system is something that is trusted, it's known about, that we're getting these referrals. This isn't an unreasonable amount of referrals that are coming in for an organisation as large as the council, with as many different services that we have, and also a number of third parties that we work with. There's a very large number, obviously. So I'm comfortable that this is a healthy whistleblowing process that we're getting referrals through. We work with them, but it's not an unmanageable number, so we can work through with this. So I think that sums up where we are with the report, but I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you very much, Adrian. Great to hear that the resources are being put in place to drive the plan forward. As you rightly said, it's sort of picked up, but we know there was good reasons for that, and that's now moving forward nicely. So very much welcome that. Any
conclusions being drawn? That's one question. That's one question. I've got another one afterwards.
Thank you, Adrian. You're on. Oh, you're off.
Oh, sorry. Has it gone on? Oh, there we go. Right. Thank you. Yes, sorry. Yes, we do. The council has invested in AI and Copilot. That's a Microsoft product that we use. And yes, we are very much aware of the risks of not looking at that diligently and checking what comes out. So it's a balance between using the AI and Copilot facilities that we have through carefully worded prompts and questions to make sure that you give it the best chance to come up with the right information from the right sources for the right period of time. So it's not something that you can go at naively. You need to be critically aware of what you're looking for, and therefore it's there to do the work, not necessarily all the thinking. And that's something that we're very keen on making sure that all of us do that. But if the functionality is asked a sensible question and given lots of prompts, and also you can actually direct it to particular documents and so forth. If you wanted a document looked at, you can say, this is the one we want you to look at. It has proved really helpful for doing the work. But yes, you do need to go back and just double check what it's saying. Has it read it right? Has it interpreted it right? What does it mean? What's it saying? But that's even so, if you've sort of worked on getting the right question and you look at and you critically evaluate what it's telling you, it still, I would say, does save time. It can cover a lot of ground. It can put forward some prompts. It can spread its net wide. So it does save officers time when they're trying to sort of prepare for audits, or even in this case where it's coming out for sort of investigatory work. If you're trying to find out information and do that in a sort of quick way, it does help and pulls up all sorts of information that you might not have thought of, you might not have realised, and it will give you some lines of inquiry. But yes, those lines of inquiry need to be thoroughly and diligently looked into to see what's there. Very much aware of the media reports where certain individuals perhaps relied on some things and then been called out when it's been found that it's not accurate or correct. So we are alert to that. But yes, I think it does have great capabilities if it's a tool that's properly used.
Yeah, thank you, Adrian. It can certainly accelerate, and I use it in various ways. You know, if you've got a series of documents, you can put all three in, and it will find where the commonalities are and pick out certain words, and will be able to draw out the information to save you an enormous amount of time, and also pick out various themes. So if there's you know, ideas and regular comments from, you know, customers or stakeholders, it could certainly be used in our customer service. You know, we put all of our customer service feedback into an AI machine, out would pop some sort of, you know, common themes and activities which could save an enormous amount of time off people sitting there, you know, manually going through flip charts and comments and such like. So, you know, it has its benefit, but you do need to sanity check some of the language when it pops out the other end. So it can give some unusual Americanisms. Robert, you had a second question, I think.
Yes, yeah. I'm sure one day we won't be sitting here and a few robots will, doing our job anyway.
Speak for yourself.
The next page, page 74, Adult Education Budget 221. Internal Audit Team await further guidance on the future arrangements for the budget. Can you elaborate a bit, and please, and what guidance they are after and when?
If I may, Chair, this is linked to the sort of devolution arrangements, and the government at several different stages have looked to see whether or not councils can take over and manage budgets such as adult education budgets. So you'll be aware that devolution has sort of overtaken that work, or it's gone in that direction, and at the moment we're still waiting to know where that stands and for that to become a thing. We had done some work on it in preparation for taking over sort of the budget and the fund for adult education to see where the service was placed on that. So this is kind of a hangover from that, if you like. We'd sort of we'd had a plan, we were moving forward towards it, but it's kind of on hold now while we wait to see how that works through. Yes, hopefully that's helped.
Thank you. And it was Brenda next. Thank you, Brenda.
Thanks ever so much. On pages 70 and 71, the papers refer to 26 ongoing internal audits, providing coverage across a number of directorates. However, the report doesn't specify which areas these audits relate to, when each audit commenced, or what progress has been made to date. Could the committee therefore be provided with further details on the scope and status of these 26 audits? In particular, is there currently an internal audit underway examining the governance arrangements of the Norse Group? So it's really about specificity, which is a great word. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Of course, you've got the 26 listed there, but I think what you're saying is it needs to be broken down into what is the report, where is its status, and where it is. I think we could probably all benefit from that additional information. Adrian, is there anything you want to... Perhaps we can bring that for the next, if you feel appropriate.
Chairman, yes, sorry. I'm very happy to provide more information. We'd sort of make a balance between keeping the reports obviously as concise as we can, but very happy, and I appreciate the importance and the relevance to being aware of how that's working through. So yes, happy to pull that together into a table and bring that into as the next report. So thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Brian.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Adrian. I think you've already answered one of the questions I was going to ask, but could I just have clarification? You were talking about 3 senior auditors and then recruiting a temporary senior internal auditor. What's the how long will we have that person in place for, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, sorry. So just to go over that again. So we've got 1 auditor who's going to be doing the schools, 3 senior auditors. They're not all full-time. 2 audit managers who are qualified. One of them's qualified accountant. The other one is qualified IIA, which is Institute of Internal Auditors. And then the senior manager is Jackie, who's been to these meetings before. For the senior auditors, we have 2 of them who are permanent, and we have 1 who is a temporary placement. They were with us initially for sort of 3 months, and that's been extended now to cover to the end of the calendar year. What I will be doing is reviewing the situation in terms of the work that we have, what needs doing, and obviously I can always talk to the Director of Strategic Finance if it's felt that is something that needs to be that we need extra resource or we need to maintain that, then I will obviously make a case for that. But I'm trying to balance the sort of the budget in terms of the work. So we have that in place at the moment. I think that's the right thing to do. I was really pleased to be able to recruit into that position. But I will absolutely, it'll be kept under close management and observation as to what the plan is to move forward with that. Thank you.
Yeah, Brian.
Thank you for that clarification, Adrian. A couple of other quick questions, if I may, regarding the creation of the local audit office during the next couple of years and how it will affect our own audit readiness and internal audit future role. And secondly, how are you preparing for the expected local audit tightening of assurance standards following the National Public Interest Reports and high-profile council failures elsewhere? Please.
Thank you, if I may, Chairman. Yes, sorry. So in terms of, if I can take those, the last one first. So in terms of preparing for the work, we're working through with the external audits backstop dates and how that works through. So from the last meeting, that was where my colleague Joe had been explaining about the work that they were doing with the external auditors in looking at working papers and so forth, and the arrangements, and so there is continual improvement in terms of the approach to how the audit is conducted and preparation of the audit work and so forth, because we're moving towards getting out from the disclaimed opinion situation. So that carries on. And I think in terms of the local audit work and its development, I've made a link to the statement. I think that is progressing, but apart from sort of what's available from the site, I don't have any particular more information on that. But the government is sort of announcing things as they progress, so I don't have any particular information other than what the government had said. Thank you.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for those questions and points. I'm very keen to move on to the recommendations now, if that's okay. To consider and agree, they're all listed there. I'm going to read all of that on page 69. Are members happy to agree those recommendations? Yep, agreed. Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item 7, which is the Norfolk Audit Services Terms of Reference Charter and Code of Ethics. So, Adrian, it's back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. Yes, so this report is one of our annual reports that we bring, and it introduces the terms of reference for the internal audit team. The audit committee have a terms of reference, which is in the constitution. That's separate to this. So this is the terms of reference, or charter as it's called, and it also includes the code of ethics that we follow as part of the audit work that we do. So the charter or terms of reference that we have it's quite a long document, and it sets out all the different things that the internal audit service is expected to do. As a function, a service, the internal audit has global standards that we follow, and they have a how that should be implemented into the UK public sector. There's an implementation guidance for that. So in terms of the work that we do, it's very well regulated and codified into the sorts of work. It sets out all the standards that are to be followed in terms of planning an audit, conducting an audit, reporting an audit, the ethics, the qualifications, how the audit work is resourced, and so forth. So it covers, it's really the Haynes manual for internal audit. And so this terms of reference is part of that, to say, yes, this is how we are doing that locally. So it is quite a long and technical document, but hopefully it sets that out in a nice, readable, accessible way. So it's how we are applying the standards that are expected of internal auditors, and that's the standards that will be expected first by the Chief Executive, the senior leaders, from yourselves, what you would want to expect or should expect from us as the audit team. And also that's then looked at by the external auditors, by EY. They would look at how we are producing our work and that it meets those standards. So it is an important document, but it's sort of in the back together that makes sure that we have a sound and resilient internal audit service that we provide to you that can be trusted and understood, and you can rely on and take assurance from. So this is the benchmark that we have. So I'm happy to take any questions, but I just commend it to you as our Haynes manual, if you like. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any points on this? I think this is exactly the same as last year's, and Adrian, there hasn't been any changes, so it's a standard piece. Brian, you're getting good value for money today from your attendance. Thank you.
That's very kind of you, Chair. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm taking into account the disclaimed audit opinion that we had last time with the external auditors. How does the charter that we have here at Appendix A ensure that the internal audit team can escalate concerns early and clearly to members? And in your view, Adrian, do we need any additional specialist audit skills as our risk profile as a council increases? Thank you.
Yeah. Adrian, do you want to answer that?
Yes, thank you very much. The charter sort of sets out our approach, as I was saying, including planning and so forth. So when we put together the audit plan for the work that we would do, which is going on at the moment, the audit plan will be brought to a future meeting. So when we're putting that together, we consider that on a risk assessed basis, and we take into account the risks in the risk register, and also the expectations of the external auditors and of management in terms of the coverage there should be. And we then bring that obviously to the audit committee, and we discuss it with the chairman beforehand in that bringing it forward. So we bring the plan forward to you and commend it to you. So the plan covers the areas, as I've explained sort of before, for what can be considered reasonable assurance, that it covers certain categories, for example, procurement, governance, financial, and so forth. So there are different areas. So we look to cover those different areas so that there's that breadth of coverage, not just we do follow the money and we do look at the money side of it, but there are other areas as well and important topics to cover. So we'll build that into the plan and we'll bring that to the committee to consider and agree. I think in terms of the work that's needed, we discuss with EY what sort of work they're looking for and what will help them. That is part of the work that's I mentioned earlier about the work on my Oracle, on covering AP, AR and payroll. So those are areas that we're looking to look into, and that will help the external auditors in their work. Something that they've asked us to pick up on particularly. I think the first question I think was what you had. If we have any findings, or if we identify that there are any issues, that we report those. So we will pick those up. If there are any that we're coming back with that are significant, we would report those as points of note to the committee to explain what was found in terms of if audits are red risks, or if they're significantly important, and if there were amber, if there were issues to be addressed. So we would report those through to the committee to understand what those were from the audit work that had taken place, and also that confidence that there was a robust action plan in place to deal with those. So those are the arrangements that we use to bring and escalate any issues that are there. But the audit report that we issue would have an action plan in it to say, which would agree with the service as to what actions they were going to take on that.
Yeah, thank you, Adrian. And actually, just to reassure members here, under page 89, there's a responsibility of the Chief Internal Auditor to communicate with Senior Management and Audit Governance Committee. And then 6.5, there's a Chief Internal Auditor report periodically to Senior Management. And then there's the other bullet there regarding controls and issues and risks to the Audit Committee as well. There is also, in between meetings, if there's anything like that, a balloon goes up or no surprises, please, then Adrian and I will have a conversation about things as chairman of the committee. So there is a constant, two-way dialogue. We don't wait between the meetings. And actually that is probably spelt out more in the terms of reference of this committee, Brian, rather than the charter. But so in the terms of reference, when it comes for this committee, there is more in there about the role of the chair and vice chairs. You know, having that, as you'd expect, any chair of any committee would work with their chief officers. I think that's right. Any other points on this chart? If not, we can move to the recommendations then, please, which are on page 83, which is to consider and agree the audit terms of reference charter, then to confirm the accuracy accurately reflects and understanding expectations of internal audit function, and internal audit mandate provides appropriate authority, role and responsibilities of the internal audit function. Are you happy to agree those, please? Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Right. Moving on, which is light at the end of the tunnel, which is the last bit, which is the forward work programme, I do believe, which Adrian, do you want to just take us through that? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the forward work programme sets out the reports. So on page 100, you'll see that there's a list of the reports for the April meeting. That's where there's a number of different reports, such as the insurance cover report and our internal audit strategy and audit plan that I was talking about earlier. Also one about the governance of the Norfolk Pension Fund. So there's quite a large agenda for that meeting. Then at the July meeting, that's where I was explaining we'll be bringing the Norfolk Audit Services annual report and the quarterly report ended June, and the normal risk management reports and so forth are coming at each quarter. So that sets out to the horizon for the reports that are there. So I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Yeah, Robert, thank you.
Yeah, just a quick question. What's the likelihood of it going ahead on time and the audit, effectively the audit, external audit being complete? Or is that not relevant on this one? Yes, it is, yes. Will EY have completed the external audits, do you think? I know it's a difficult question.
Yes, please.
Sorry, I think if we're talking about this, so the last meeting, there were the committee approved the accounts, and then that work was it was resolved that the chairman and the director of strategic finance would move that forward to move to the completion of the accounts. That's where there is the backstop date later in February from the government. So that work is progressing as far as I'm aware. So that's moving forward, I think. So was that the accounts that you were thinking of?
You think of the 26-27 accounts, are you, Robert? Will that would come to?
Yes, I may be premature actually,
yes,
Chairman, in thinking of the date. Sorry.
Yeah, 12 months ahead of the rest of us, Robert, as always. But no, we're keeping a close eye on that one because, you know, in terms of the statements which we get at the end of the year, we want that to be back on track. And I think EY have gradually got there. So thank you very much, Adrian, for that. I know one thing, next time perhaps they can put another bar on because it's gone quite chilly in this council chamber, hasn't it? That's where we must be saving the money. There we are. Right, can we... Yes, Tony. Can we move to the recommendations then to consider and agree the work programme of the committee, and if any further information is required, are we happy to agree those? There we are. Agreed. Thank you very much. Well, we'll close the meeting there and thank members and officers for their time this afternoon, and we'll see you again in April. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.